Welcome to Sword and Shield, the official podcast of the 960th Cyberspace Wing. Join us for insight, knowledge, mentorship, and some fun as we discuss relevant topics in and around our wing. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any particular person or business is ever intended.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Sword and Shield. This is Chief Master Sgt. Howard, Acting Command Chief and Superintendent of the 960th COG. And today with me I have...
Hi, I am Command Chief Shana Cullum, the 433rd Airlift Wing Command Chief. Thanks for having me over.
No, I appreciate it, Chief. Just to kind of frame it out a little bit, the 433rd is here on JBSA with us, and you are our supporting partner within the reserves here at JBSA, correct?
We are.
And
yes.
Right. And I just wanted to talk today about some of the relationships that we have and that how the two wings work and kind of some of the nuances between the wings. So how long have you been here?
So I've been here right at 2 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It's gone fast.
Gotcha.
Very fast.
Can you kind of give me your perspective of what that relationship was 2 years ago between the 960th and the 433rd?
I can. So actually it goes back a little bit before that. When I found out that I was coming here from Westover, I was talking to Chief Tomlinson. He was the first sergeant FAM at the time. And when he heard I was coming to Lackland, he asked me to reach out to Chief Zabala, who, when the 960th was still a group
right
at that point. And he said that there was a lot of stress between the group and the wing. We knew that the 960th was going to grow into a wing very quickly, shortly after I got here. But I think it makes sense to talk about where we came from,
right,
to get to where we are right now. 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when the 940 or the 960th was a group just starting, and they awkwardly placed a group that falls under 10th Air Force under a 4th Air Force asset for us to support.
right.
But the all of the unknowns created a lot of friction. And the two leadership teams back then probably did not communicate as well as could have been.
Gotcha.
And we ran into struggles of, and it was learn as we go. The passcodes. The 4th Air Force NAF doesn't have access to 10th Air Force group passcodes, passwords to or passcodes to be able to support LRS. I mean, you guys were deploying and our LRS couldn't supply uniforms because we couldn't see any of your folks because they had different passcodes.
Right.
So I know that was one area of contention, and Med Group trying to get the communication lines and those records to be able to cross flow so we could see the 960th's paperwork. I mean, that was it seems very fundamental, but it was a huge issue.
Right.
The 433rd was not manned to the manning to support the extra group. Initially wasn't laid in. So they were struggling. It created a lot of contention. So that was 3-4 years ago. And then you put the uniqueness of all the GSUs,
right,
working a completely different mission set. There's just a lot of ingredients for a very bad recipe, if you will. But I really think in the last 2.5 years, we've grown leaps and bounds. The relationship, the communicating between the new sets of leadership groups and trying to work those hurdles. Now we know what the hurdles are.
Right.
But where we are right now, I think we have. Do I think we have a lot of space to get better? Most definitely. But I think the communication between the leadership teams are about as good from my perspective, anyways, you guys haven't told us any different. So, from my perspective, is probably the best that it has been since the 960th sprouted. So,
Right. Yeah.
your
And
thoughts?
from my perspective, right. So, come November will be 2 years as a wing, right? So we were activated in
Wow,
November
yeah.
of 18, and we were stood up. We went from the group to the wing. So that brought its own growing pains as well as the previous growing pains. You hit on GSUs. We have 10 different GSUs spread across the continental U.S. So that's a big muscle movement for anybody, let alone when we start adding some of those other pieces that you discussed. Where we talk about the chain of information from the 4th Air Force, the chain of information from the 10th Air Force, what requirements are for simple processes. Let's take step 2. It was one of the most recent
Right.
processes. Sometimes when it comes to programs like that, your NAF has a certain way that they want to see items, and how do you get some of those opportunities? And then the 10th does it a little bit differently. Those minor nuances when it comes to the single FSS that we use under the 433rd can be very problematic. If they got a set of rules from their leadership, from your wing, and then from your NAF, and then we come in with a totally different looking package, now that brings where do we deconflict those problems? So it's a training situation where we have to explain how the 10th Air Force looks at it differently, and this is the requirements, while still meeting the intent of the force. So why are they different, right?
Right.
Why is it so different when it's going to AR or PC? And that, I think that's one of the key pieces there. But when it comes to the leadership piece specifically, I would say that since coming to the group in June, and even when I was at the unit prior to that relationship between the 433rd and the 960th, it's really easy for each side to throw spears, right? Of how we look at it. But being at the group, I know that the conversations you and I have on the regular basis, the fact that both wing leaderships talk weekly at a minimum, if not multiple times a week. I'd like to highlight COVID as a good example. When COVID really kicked off, before that, we were having at least once a week meetings with your staff, right? So we would come to your staff meeting, and then we'd also have additional pre-UTA meetings that we would attend.
Yeah.
And your leadership team has, specifically this leadership team with you and Colonel McLean, has made sure that we were invited to any of the meetings, that we had a seat at the table, and that we were provided the same information as anybody else within the wing. Right. So that goes a long way. It's an equality thing right there, right? Of that, yes, we acknowledge you're a wing, and we know that we're sharing these resources, and then making sure that we were informed, timely, and kept in the loop. But COVID specifically, when things started really falling off, right? So when the stress starts to really ratchet up, and we have a lot of constrained resources, your team made sure that we were included. We were part of the CATS. We were getting regular updates. We were included in all of the stats. When it came to how do we solve this problem, 960th was always part of the equation when it came to those conversations, as well as always part of the solution. So you would reach out to us. What do you guys see? How would you like to do this? Do you want to be separate from us in doing this, or would you like us to take this on, right? So you guys do take on a number of things to support us so that we're not doing double or triple the work, right?
Yeah. So the step 2 process actually was an eye opener for me, because when I got here, I didn't realize that there was even 2 separate processes. So I work with the FSS and say, this is how we're going to do it. And then out of the clear blue sky, Chief Bischoff is like, hey, wait a minute, we can't do it that way. And I didn't even realize that there were possibly 2 different processes.
Right.
And it makes total sense. But that really opened up my eyes to, I can't just assume that you all are doing the same thing that we are, because we fall under 2 separate umbrellas. But you guys have made it so easy. And actually fun to interact, both you and Chief Bischoff and Colonel Jones, and Colonel Ridge. But I don't look at the 960th as extra support. I look at it as an extra resource.
Okay.
The PDC is the perfect example. We were trying to get that up and going and supply classes for basically 7 classes a week. That's 7 hours of class.
That's a monumental
heavy
lift, right?
It was, but we both wings have had the COVID made a lot of our folks unemployed.
Right.
We needed a resource to get caught up on EPRs, decorations. A lot of people didn't know how to do that. And we used that avenue, but we did not have the people and the knowledge and the facilitators to get that PDC up and flying to where it is today. So I looked at the 960th as an extra resource. Yes, it's a give and take, but you guys have given back just as much as there has been support needed. With saying that, I think we got a lot of room for improvement with, the GSUs. It's difficult to support folks that you've never seen, you've never laid eyes on, that have a complete different mission, and you're not manned for. So our FSS is manned really for about 23 to 2,500 folks, but they're supporting about 4,000.
Right.
And when I say they're manned for, that means they have the positions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the bodies filling those those positions.
Right.
So
can we speak to that a little bit? Right. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to break that down so people understand what this looks like. Right. So here's the ugly part of what's going on is when we talk about that manning, you might have on your UMD, let's say just for a number, say 20, right? And of that 20, it's a mixture of TRs, ARTs, and maybe an AGR.
Right.
So then let's say you have, 4 of those ARTs that are pulling MPA somewhere else. Now you're fully manned,
right?
But you don't necessarily have the body and the seat to do those problems, right? So I don't know if you could speak a little bit more to that.
So I don't have the very specific numbers to each,
right.
But I don't want to misspeak there. I know that the AGR conversion has helped us out a little bit.
Okay.
With getting those positions filled. The TRs we're sitting a little bit better, but that's not helping our GSUs and the rest of our members going into a UTA when everything's hitting. And now you got COVID, where and it'll be interesting to see. I have complete confidence that we'll figure it out,
right?
And get our airmen taken care of. But it's not going to be an easy road, because now they're already short mans, and they were keeping up, but by far not ahead. Yeah. And now we are way far behind, even with the 433rd members. So it is going to take some constant.
Right. No, it's a hairy situation when we look at it, right? It's part of the nature of the reserves. So we man enough full-time staff to keep the lights on and keep some of the processes moving, so that we can prep for that surge capability through a UTA, bringing in our TRs. So when COVID comes into play, right? So we are already built to be behind throughout the month, catch up on the UTA on top of all the other requirements we put there.
Right.
And then now you throw COVID in there and we're doing it virtually. We've got it sporadic. So when it comes to some of those support agencies, they have specific systems that they have to access, which may be a server or something or a terminal in location. So how do I get them to actually attack that terminal? LRS is a good example of, right, of having a specific terminal that they have to use for some of the movements. If I don't get that person in the seat, then I'm even further behind. And if I'm not catching that up, it's very problematic.
Yeah. So we're looking at that. We're already trying to project how we're going to get that fixed. I don't know that it'll ever be 100% fixed, but better. And you and I had talked to Chief White here several months back and addressed this. And I think this comes back to I don't think he completely at that point understood where we were manning wise until we talked to him when he was here on his visit and brought it to his attention. And I know it's being talked about, but maybe this will be the answer, to getting a 960th FSS.
Right. Yeah. No, I've seen a couple of different plans.
Or fill in the blank, whatever that is. So,
No, great point, right? So when we talked to Chief White, I think that because of our relationship, it helped sell the point because it wasn't adversarial, right? It wasn't like you're not providing this, or you guys are asking for too much, or you're unrealistic. It was, no, we agree. Here's the situation. Here's the good, the bad, the ugly. And I know that Chief Loper, prior to Chief Malcolm, and Chief Malcolm now at the NAF, have championed it, and I believe Chief Villa is championing it from the force. So now we've got 2 NAFs working it. We've got 2 wings, all addressing this to AFRC of we got that the construct worked well on paper, right? So when we look at resources to understand why this decision was made, they figured that all that overhead that comes with a squadron, right? So if the 960th ends up getting their own FSS, that comes with a certain amount of overhead.
Right.
When we talk about leadership teams, support staff, things like that. So when AFRC's manning the books and looking at those numbers, they're looking at it, okay, if I don't have that overhead, I can put it here under the 433rd, add 1 or 2 bodies versus 10.
Right.
So it's an easy numbers game. What that comes down to our individual airmen is when that number game doesn't work out in their favor, we see lags in things like travel vouchers, which is one of the biggest ones within the 960th, right? And we've been lucky that those relationships have worked well. We've leveraged individuals. We've been happy, I hate to say it, poach some talent from your wing to come over and help support, stand our things up.
We don't mind sharing.
Right.
We're good sharers. But I think we've done a really good job at trying to bridge that gap with the communication and the relationships that are being built. But I think what I want the airmen to get most is we know their struggles. We know that we've got hurdles in front of us to overcome. But hopefully you can look back and see where we were and where we are now and see the huge improvement. And we will keep continuing to talk, communicate, pushing it up the chain, taking every opportunity, like when Chief White was here to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. But in the meantime, how do we take care of our airmen and get it taken care of? And I think we're doing a lot better job at that. And as we continue to get the feedback, I think our 2 teams are doing the best we can to fill those gaps. And
right. And I know from your history and my history, we both were first sergeants and together, yes. Yeah. But we would love to be able to just snap a finger or have an easy answer to make these problems go away, right? Because we truly care about our airmen and we truly care about the situation. But there's some barriers we just can't get past. So I think it really comes to the relationship piece that the 2 wings have and building on that to make those improvements. When you're in that tactical level, sometimes it feels like it should be easy, right? Why can't I just get this one piece moving? Right. And I think that's important when we talked about all those different nuances, when we talk about the different NAPs, we talk about the different wings, the different processes, then access to those passcodes, little things that the small things that people don't see every day that cause some of those barriers.
Right. Yeah.
So we hit on the PDC and kind of how we're coming together as 2 wings to produce that. Do you see any other things that we can work on as 2 wings to continue to improve quality of access to development or life for both of the wings and the GSUs?
So one of the things that the PDC has brought to light is how many really great airmen that we have out there that would have never been brought to the forefront. Right. If the PDC wouldn't have had to stand up the way that it did, but it opens up so much more aperture outside of the PDC, and weighing in on the civilian expertise that a lot of our folks bring to the table that we don't realize because we see them 2 days a month or maybe 3 or 4 days a month. I'm excited to see. It's exciting to bring the resources together, but it's also just as exciting to see the 960th growing into itself and being able to be a independent PDC as
Right.
well. I know you guys are doing a lot of things, and I'm like, hey, I want to borrow that. But it is more than just the PDC
Right.
itself. There's been a lot of opportunities for our airmen to come over and fill some of your MPA or manning deficiencies,
Right.
if you will. And we've gotten some of our airmen back that from the 960th that they have grown. And that expertise and the different mission set
Right.
that the 960th has, and bringing that back over to the 930 or to the 433rd. I just think it's a win-win. The other areas where we lack or that we're having trouble with, the medical, whatever the case, those things have just got to be worked at our level and,
Right.
and continuously talked about and worked on. But yeah, I'm excited. Honestly, the 960th brings like a breath of fresh air, and it's forced the 433rd to realize that there's more outside of the 433rd, and it's right in their backyard.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Yeah, I do like the cross utilization, right? So when you have two wings and two NAFs sitting in the same space, right?
Right.
You can really start cross utilizing knowledge, experience, and some of those great practices. And we have been lucky to be able to utilize some of your heavy hitters to help develop some of our processes. And then we've been able to give opportunity to some of your airmen where the opportunity wasn't necessarily available in your wing, and vice versa, right? So we have individuals that are getting kind of stovepiped into a position,
right.
With your wing being right here. It's made it a lot easier. And then, of course, we don't talk about the fact that we have other reserve units over at Randolph and things that we start pulling back and forth from and making it a pretty interesting location.
And the breadth, the breadth of experience that's outside of their, I know you've got one individual, she's working travel vouchers and has made a huge impact.
Significant. We're talking $1 million changes.
Right. She's medical.
Yep.
She's one of our medical folks.
She's going to be a Diamond One First Sergeant soon.
I know, I heard. That's awesome. So reaching into the different experiences and the breadth that the opportunities that we have, I'm grateful for it. I'm excited to see where we go in the future. And I want to thank the 960th leadership, because you guys, yes, we've thrown invites out there, but it could have easily been, oh no, we're good. You guys have bit on everything and have really been fun to work with. And the floats last year was really an icebreaker because the 433rd, we had the float, we were a little bit behind schedule, and then all of a sudden the 960th comes in and picks it up and really got everybody across the line, and it was phenomenal. But it opened up the opportunity for you guys this year if we would have been able to have Fiesta, but
COVID.
It'll happen.
Right.
So, my hope is that one float is right behind the other, whether it's 433rd or the 960th, the other one's right behind or right in front of, so we can show the team.
I fully agree. Right. Yeah. So that partnership has gone great. And I want to thank you as well, you and Colonel McLean, specifically for opening your arms, because it goes both directions, right? Yeah. If you guys didn't want to be good mission partners, you didn't have to invite us, but you guys did. Yeah, when we ask for support, you guys are always readily available. When we have an issue, you make sure we get the resources. It's always at the leadership team level. We always get good reception. We always get equal footing, and that relationship has aided in so many of these little barriers we've talked about getting cleared out in a timely manner to get some of these things moving and help us hit some of those fires. We know that there's a lot of growth to still be done.
Sure.
We know that it's not always pretty, but it's one of those things that. I wanted to make sure our airmen know that we at the leadership level are at least having good conversations and working together as a team to work their problems to make sure that their quality of life is there, and that we're clearing those barriers that we have to so that they can get at the mission. So I do appreciate all of the stuff that you and your team has done for us, and all the opportunities that you provide for us as well. So I look forward to, a few more years.
Continuing that,
right?
Yes. Yeah. So
I don't know. Was there anything else you might want to tell the crowd before we sign off, ma'am?
Stay healthy, stay strong, and thanks for what just thanks. Our airmen are just, for the most part, phenomenal human beings.
Right.
And what the civilian experience brings to the table is, I've been in 28 years now, and I still get shocked at some of the folks I get to interact with and what they bring to the table. It just blows my mind. So I'm thankful to be part of the team and the leadership team. You're talking about it being easy. And Colonel McLean has a saying: "If it was easy, mere mortals would do it."
Right.
But thanks for opening up this opportunity, and I do plan on appropriating your
Happy or Not awesome
kiosk out here. Is pretty awesome.
Right.
So,
no, I want to thank you for your time. It's definitely something different, but like everything else we've done, working as a team, you help us improve how we do business. So thank you very
that's
much.
the goal.
And then of course, thank you to all the airmen out there,
Yes.
and their commitment to the mission, their commitment to their country, and their commitment to their fellow airmen. So with that, I think we'll send everybody off on a good day.